Hello, everybody. My name is Deb Coviello, founder of Illumination Partners, and I just want to thank you for joining me on another episode of Drop In CEO Live Talk Media. I am so excited to have this conversation for you and with my great colleague, Chuck Cooper, who he talks about clarity and peace of mind when he does the work for small and medium sized business owners by leveraging his expertise and his network with HR solutions. And as the managing member of Whitewater Consulting Group, I know I have come to be very fond of who he is and his work in servicing others. So, Chuck, welcome to the show.
It's great to be with you, Deb.
All right. And for those of you that don't know, and if you follow the Drop In CEO podcast, Chuck was a really, really great guest this week. We were on Monday. So if you want to learn more about Chuck, even after this show, check out the Drop In CEO podcast to listen to our great conversation. But I wanted to start this week out. Somebody was talking to me and said, we're doing a lot of work around resiliency. Post pandemic, people are getting their footing again. Leaders are starting to gain traction or feel like things have returned to a sense of normalcy. But then it begs the question, what kind of support, what type of support system do you need to invest in today in order to be better prepared for tomorrow and not being caught off guard? So that's what we're going to talk about. Chuck is going to help me with this conversation. So, Chuck, I know you have served so many companies and have a tremendous amount of experience, but from your experience, what have they seen as the challenges that these leaders have? And at what point should they maybe start thinking about the support that you can provide them if they're not already working with you? So, what's your experience in that area?
It's been really interesting, Deb, as we look back, especially over the last 18 months since COVID has hit. The way that the reasons that leaders have reached out to us has really come from a different perspective. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that um, a lot of times the business owner or the leadership team, in many cases, were really operating in a silo. And so what we found was oftentimes our phone would ring, we would get a communication from someone saying, we've got all these people related challenges. And because of the fact that the work that I do is focused on HR and people issues within companies, they were reaching out just to really to use me as a sounding board and really to be able to bounce some ideas off of. So some of the issues that that they were challenged with at that point was, it seems like everything that's people related as it comes back to my work has really changed since COVID. So how do we go about bringing our people back safely? To do we do we start to move toward an environment where we allow people to work remote, or do we go with a hybrid model? And as a client told me the other day, when he called, he said, it just seems like everything today that's people related has changed. And so we're having to review and revise and try to reposition our policies and our processes so that we are best suited for future growth. And I'm trying to run a business and trying to keep this profitable. So where do I start?
And that's, first of all, kudos to those leaders that are even asking the right questions. Yes, they were caught a little bit off guard, but they are, rather than muscling through it or throwing up their hands or maybe downsizing or falling victim to circumstances, kudos to those leaders that are just thinking differently and saying, I know I need somebody. I need an external view. I need a sounding board, if nothing else, just to help myself get back on track, or maybe there are services that I can leverage, a strategy that could be developed to fix things now, but hopefully in the future as well, so we don't have that. And I'm just going to go off track a little bit here. So you've been able to help some leaders now navigate this change, but I am curious about what are some of the questions they should be asking. What are those resources? What should they be doing now, even if it's not a problem, to better prepare for the future? I'm curious.
And I think that's a great question, Deb, because at this time of the year, I mean, most companies and their leadership teams are really sitting down to kind of strategize on where they want to go over the next 12 months. And I guess one of the things that we try to encourage our business owners that we talk to today is really expand that time frame out, to really look at it over the next 24 to 36 months. And by doing so, it gives you the opportunity to really take a deeper dive into your current mission, vision, values, to
Mhm.
make sure that it is where we are today is going to be where we want to go in the future, and that it will help us get there. And then second, as we look at companies, your greatest asset are your people. So what type of investments do we need to be making into our people today so that they are best positioned to, from a manager role, to be able to lead their teams most effectively? And then also from the employee perspective, what do we need to do to help them essentially bring the best version of themselves to the workplace every day so that we can get the most productivity and so that they can be the most fulfilled as they go through the next 12 months?
That so resonates with a blog post that's going to be going up today because I too, I have a little birdie that sits on my shoulder. It's called Amanda, and she said to me, "I'd love you to put a best piece out there about what are those resources or systems you need now to be better for the future." And one of the things I talked about was a human capital strategist, meaning somebody that's looking so far down the road, it almost seems unfathomable that you would even want to think about it. I mean, just like say, yes, we were caught off guard with the pandemic. So obviously the workforce strategies had to change. But what if we had certain things like maybe a military situation where adults needed to go in service to the military? Have we equipped the next level of leadership to be able to just step in? And that sounds very similar to the work that you do as well.
Very true. It's exactly the same.
Yeah, and like what if infrastructure goes down? What if we cannot communicate? What if Facebook and all the other platforms come down? We still have to run businesses. We still have to connect with our people. What should we be doing now? I don't know, get a couple pigeons to make sure that we still connect with the people. I mean, I'm thinking big picture. How much do you force your clients to really, really think into the future?
So it's really interesting. And most of the time when we're talking with our clients, we start off and we are essentially operating with a very reactive mindset.
Mm,
And so we're really dealing with issues as they arise. And so our philosophy is, and this comes from my own personal experience as well, is you have to make that change so that you start investing into what could be potential issues now, so that when those fires arise, they don't go to the same level as they would if you operated reactively. So our approach is we want our clients to be looking out, depending on where they are in the stage of their business, typically 3 to 5 years.
yep.
And that's the reason in many cases right now we are seeing an increase in the number of businesses owners that are actually looking at and planning for a business exit over the next 3 to 5 years. And so we're coming alongside them to help start to create those strategies to best position them to maximize that value.
And this is why you and I resonate so much because I have a client. I love my client. I'm grateful for them. And while it was under the guise of helping them to get a quality certification in order to maintain their relevancy for a major customer, but in the process, part of having the right ecosystem, we had to do a risk and mitigation strategy. What are all of the business risks, not just operationally, but infrastructure, cybersecurity, human resources, regulatory changes? And by the time we were done with that exercise, I was actually scared, like, was I servicing the customer the right way? A couple things came out of it. First of all, oh my, they had already been thinking about a lot of these things. And by the way, some of the leaders had the same issues on their list, which means the leadership was connected, very well connected, and all on the same page. And things that weren't being addressed, we then laid out a plan to say, how do we mitigate that risk? A lot of about getting the right talent. But again, you get to service such clients that really have that foresight. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's really been they fall into one or two categories. Really, they're either operating reactively or they're operating from a very proactive standpoint. And again, as we've seen many times, we have a tendency, our natural tendency is to operate reactively, but
Mhm.
until we have a major issue come up to where it really has an impact either on us personally or within our business, that is what ultimately will cause a change to a mindset to become much more proactive in how we start to manage our business.
I think if leaders, and thank you for that, Chuck. Maury, thinking ahead to the next thing, I think leaders just need to pause and reflect a little bit. Maybe business is going well. Maybe you've weathered the storm. Maybe your services or products really took off during the pandemic. But business is cyclic, and we need to think about what are all those risks, maybe even opportunities that if we don't take advantage of them, we may miss the boat. Leaders need to take some time, bring in leadership such as yourself, or may I say myself as well, to say, what are the questions we should be asking ourselves now? What investment in human capital should we be making? What investments maybe in media, being having relationships in the media? So if something happened, we've got friends and we can mitigate things that could potentially go viral about your industry. That could be terribly destructive, even if you're one of the good players in the industry. So, I just, anybody that's watching this, even if it's on the replay, if you're one of those leaders that have been reactive, think a little bit differently. How has that served you in the past? And what could you do going forward, and have maybe a partner such as Chuck or myself to start asking you the right questions? So, Chuck, as we kind of bring this to a close, for anybody who may or may not engage with you right away, a couple thoughts, maybe some takeaways for a leader who's may want to do something now, even before they connect with you.
So I think probably the best way to answer that is really just to give a story of a current client.
Yes.
So we had a client that reached out to us. This goes back about 7 months ago, where their company was having major challenges in the areas of employee morale. Their KPIs were spiraling. Their employee engagement was very, very poor, and their turnover was extremely high as well. And so we were able to come in and work with them to really try to identify gaps within their leadership team, and then
Mm.
also do some interviews within their management and also within the employees. And from that, we were able to provide a comprehensive report about what was really going on from top to bottom within the organization. And it really did identify some pretty significant gaps within their company. But what we found was that by identifying that and then providing some very, very simple solutions, it and essentially providing some resources for employee development and leadership development, that it changed the overall culture of the organization. And from that, they've seen their employee engagement spike significantly higher, and also their performance of the company has also increased significantly. So it's kind of interesting. The other day, I got this picture from the text from the business owner with a picture of him sitting on the beach looking out at the water. And his quote to me was just "thank you." And so it was just really gratifying to be able to see that, the work that we were able to provide to them provided enough resource and enough assurance to him that he could actually get away from work for the first time in 3 years.
And to that point, you in your headline on LinkedIn talk of peace of mind. And in my book, The CEO's Compass, the northernmost compass point is the outcome that we want to achieve, being in front of beautiful water and reflecting that the business is running just fine, is peace of mind. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation live with everybody. So, Chuck, you've been amazing. I know people may want to learn more about you and the work you do. How best can they connect with you?
The easiest way to get in touch with me is my own personal email and phone. And that is, my email is chuck@whitewaterconsulting.net. And my cell phone is 704-236-3131. Our company website is whitewaterconsulting.net. And there you can find all kinds of resources and tools that could be of value to you.
So, on that note, Whitewater Consulting, there is an amazing story behind that particular name that you've given your company. So, if people want to hear more about it, check out the Drop In CEO podcast episode with Chuck Cooper, where he unveils what that story was actually about. And I do ask you for if you need my business advisory services, coaching, consulting, and speaking, dropinceo.com is my website. And also, my resource, the CEO's Compass, your guide to get back on track, available on Amazon and other resources, is meant to help business leaders who may be a little bit off track get to peace of mind. Chuck, you've been an amazing guest. I sincerely appreciate our time together and wish you continued success.
Thank you, Deb.